Hello guys, imagine you handle media buying and marketing and you work with contractors, say contractors who drive traffic to you somehow, retargeting contractors for example, and imagine there are a lot of them. How does it usually work? As a rule, each of them has their own rules, their own recommendations, or their own documentation. Let's say what you need to do to send them data so they can work with it and bring you traffic. Yeah, set up some pixels, set up some text, configure data forwarding, and so on. And if that's ever been your situation, you're almost certainly run into the fact that different contractors have completely different ways of working with and completely different documentation. Even when the platforms are the same, managing all of this and working with it is often, in a sense, hard. So today I'll walk you through one of my cases where I helped the company get its retargeting contractors under control without losing its mind. It's a case from my gaming company and online casino, let's say, to put it simply. Yeah. Okay, so they work a lot with affiliate traffic, partner programs, and so on. And the problem ran fairly deep. Watch this video to the end and you'll understand how to organize work with a retargeting contractor so you don't go crazy and don't burn a ton of time on it. So let's go. I work with a company, iGaming company, uh, like an online casino that buys traffic in Europe and Latin America. The business model is simple enough: attract traffic, people register, make deposits, and so on. And one of the most common scenarios for this kind of business is bringing contractors, affiliate contractors, the companies that know how to attract traffic locally or through other methods. It doesn't matter. For example, traffic for retargeting, re-engaging users who have already registered but haven't made a deposit. Contractors can have different areas of expertise. Some are strong on certain platforms, others on different ones, and so on. Some in one geo, some in another, and so on. Yeah. And the problem is that there can be quite a lot of contractors, and that creates a specific issue. What issue does it create? Let's discuss. Uh, Imagine the contractor needs to receive certain data from you, for example, who registered or who registered but didn't make a deposit or who simply landed on the site. A perfectly ordinary situation. And to attract traffic, this is mandatory, nothing new. Doing it in principle isn't that hard, especially since many of them have fairly detailed documentation for it. You hand it to a developer and everything is fine. Yeah? So what's the problem? The problem is when you have many contractors, it turns out each one has its own specific documentation and they can differ from one another, sometimes quite a lot. And all of this ends up landing on the arcing head of the marketing person who manages it. That's not simple, and it also lands on aching heads of developers because they have to deal with the work they'd rather not be doing. Yeah, here's roughly how it looks. Yeah, one contractor shows up with their rules and script and say something like do this way, install the pixel, and on every purchase send a request somewhere, and so on. Fine. Then a second contractor shows up with their own rules, then a third one, then a fourth, and the rules aren't the same, they differ. But about the fourth one, the team starts losing its mind because for one and the same thing, it keeps setting up one and the same thing, just in different variations. And the problem triples when you need to switch contractors off and connect others. It turns into a whole ordeal, a huge load on the development team, which instead of building product functionality spends its time taking a purchase event or a deposit event and sending it out to different contractors according to different documentations. That's a problem, unfortunately. But it has a solution. The solution is fairly elegant, though not exactly simple to describe. Take a look at this chart. Technically, it's a little complex, but I'll try to explain it. We manage it and build this with a few simple connections. First, we use services like Google Tag Manager and Google Tag Manager Server Side. With Google Tag Manager, we track everything happening on the site, on the online casinos landing pages, which users come in, and so on. Then we have those events in a cloud database called Firestore. I'll use a few technical terms here, but I hope you'll follow. Roughly speaking, when we see that some user came in and registered, that's the important part. We take all the parameters, all the dimensions we know about them, click ID, user agent, IP address, and so on, and we save all of it in the Firestore cloud database. So, in the end, we have a database that holds the hits from all users, let's call them hits, or the data after the event from all users, when they came from, with what parameters, with click IDs they have from all the contractors. We have absolutely everything, and it just sits there quietly. What happens next? Next, we have Google Tag Manager Server Side, where we process purchase events and deposit events. And how do we do that? Let's explain. We do it very simply. We say, dear developer, roughly speaking, for a deposit event, please send us that event once, a single request to Google Tag Manager server side one time. After that, we don't touch it again. And please include the user identifier, the user ID, that's mandatory. Once he's done that, once we don't bother him again, and instead Google Tag Manager server side, we route the event. What does it mean? We take the event when it arrives in Google Tag Manager server side, which is an application running on some server. If you want to go a little deeper, message me and I'll explain it in detail. For now, let's keep it in high level. So inside this Google Tag Manager server-side application, we process what the developer sent and forward it wherever it needs to go. We wrote it by our own rules. We don't touch anyone. We say send these parameters to this contractor, this to that one, and third set to Facebook, to Google Analytics, and stuff like that, and so on. And we manage this on our side literally but drag and drop, without touching anyone, without getting in anyone's way. And it's really cool. And we can very easily switch different contractors on and off without bothering anyone. Here's the most interesting part. We don't ask the developer to send the deposit request and enrich it with some data, Facebook, click ID, or some other identifiers, or a UDM dimension, for example. We store all of that separately here in the cloud database. And then we pull back out when the developer sends us the purchase event together with the user ID. That's the stitching, a fairly straightforward operation, which was a bit hard for me to explain, but it seems it was easier for me to build than to describe. Yeah. Here, what we get in practice, we ask the developer to set up the deposit event forwarding once, and instead of spending several days managing the work of different contractors, configuring it, monitoring it, setting up logs, keeping an eye on everything, we do it in about 5 minutes, which is convenient on one hand, safe and anti-fragile on another, and on the third hand, those days are freed up for the team to spend upon something completely different, finding growth opportunities, working with hypotheses, working on company efficiency, and so on. All of this leads to more reliable, more consistent, and clean data. And the time the company spends on actually growing rather than on coordinations goes up. Marketers, head of marketing, product people, they no longer waste time working to development and to contractors. Yeah? They do what they're actually supposed to do, work on growing the metrics, growing revenue, and so on. And that means the company's spend pays back better, more efficiently, and faster. So, that's how it works in a nutshell. I apologize if I went too deep into technical terms. It was probably hard to avoid. If it's interesting to you, if you have several contractors that are hard to control, hard to compare, hard to connect, disconnect, message me and I'll try to help. This is something that can free up literally days of time, which means a huge amount of money and a huge amount of resources to spend on other hypotheses or on more valuable things. So that's it. Now you know that getting your work with a pile of retargeting contractors under control, it's possible. In terms of implementation, it's not a minor task, but it's far from impossible. If you go step by step and bring the right expertise, you can save a ton of time and ton of money, and redirect all of it into some other things, testing new hypotheses, working on creatives, working with your team, and so on. If you run into something similar, if you have a headache over how to track conversions and send them to a bunch different vendors or contractors and stuff like that, message me and we can talk through in a free consultation. For example, as has happened many times, I've helped people with no payment at all just by talking. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. The ones who work with partner programs, affiliates, retargeting, and so on. That's all for now. See you in the next video. Thank you very much.